Drove out there, went to the set, got shown to the director, and the director went, "Ah, good, you're here." I hadn't spoken to him for about 3 weeks by that stage because it had been going very poorly. And he, with over the shoulder, walked me out into the middle of the location where everybody was setting up and stuff like that. And he said, "Okay, everybody, this is the guy who drew the storyboards for this sequence. This is the guy who made this shit up. And it's his fault we're all here. So if you want to blame anyone, blame him."
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Process, where we explore the art of storytelling. I'm Lance Laspina, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and partner in crime, Mr. Shane Patrick White. Today, we're kicking off a brand new series. We like to call it the Storyboard Roundtable. It's where we invite veteran live-action storyboard artists to our table, and we pick a topic each week, or each time that we do this, and we're going to discuss that topic in hopes that it'll inform you, our audience, to be a better storyboard artist. So, let's meet our distinguished panel of guests. First, we have the godfather of storyboarding, who's been at this for decades. He's even written a book on the subject. It's called Storyboards, Motion, and Art. Please welcome Mr. Mark Simon.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on.
Next, we have the storyboard artist who's worked on the past two Mad Max films, both Fury Road and Furiosa, as well as two movies that opened to wide acclaim this year, Sinners and Thunderbolts. Mr. Mark Sexton, give him a good day.
Hello. Thank you for asking me here.
Our next guest, if you've been paying attention to our channel, you'd know that we just finished a 3-part interview series with him. He is known for having storyboarded Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as Jurassic World, Rebirth, which just came out, and Blue-Eyed Samurai. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Charles Ratteray.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Last but not least, we have industry veteran who is known for storyboarding Independence Day, Resurgence, Jurassic World, and The Revenant. Please give a big welcome to Mr. Tim Burgard.
Hey guys.
Hey.
All right. Welcome,
and he's
everyone.
Also interviewed in my storyboard book.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Which edition? I was about to say what edition you're on right now, because I've got some stuff in there for examples and things like that.
Excellent.
Very cool.
All right, so today our topic is how to deal with difficult projects. Now, there are many factors that could cause a project to go south and make it difficult to work on. So we're going to kind of go one by one. We're going to see how the discussion kind of evolves. We're going to start with the first topic. And this is, generally being abused in a toxic manner by the director or producer. So it's an example of like someone, not really respecting you and treating you in a way that is not very appropriate, perhaps in front of other people. Who would like to go first? Who has a good story to tell?
Okay.
Mark Sexton.
I
All right, Mark. Let's hear your story.
All right. This is a while back, back in the last century, which is always fun to say. I had a film fairly early in the career. It was one of two films that was being done about certain manned missions to Mars. And we had a director who had come off. I think he'd been doing a lot of Super Bowl ads, that sort of gear. It was his first feature. I think what he did, he'd come into the film, and what he was focusing on was making it a hard science film, and that's what he'd seemed to have primarily focused on, trying to get the science right. And he'd worked on the script himself, but for some reason or another, he hadn't really thought about how to put the film together itself. And so I came in as a storyboard artist when they brought it to Australia to film out at Cooper Pedy, which is in the middle of South Australia, which is basically where they shot Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. So desert, nowhere to hide. It's an interesting film. There was a few interesting characters on it. Tom Sizemore and Val Kilmer among them, who made it a very interesting film. This is post Island of Dr. Moreau Val as well, so he was in a interesting mode of working. And we had a director who really wasn't very experienced. So film went south very, very, very fast. But I'd come on to try and get storyboards done, and it became very apparent very quickly that where the director was really good at was quick montages of abstract imagery that gave a feeling. But when it came to actually putting actors in front of a camera and then moving the camera, it went nowhere very quickly. In fact, I believe on the first day of shooting, it took him about 6 hours to set up the first shot.
Oh my God.
And they didn't shoot anything because then Val then went, I'm out, and walked off.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Gosh.
And yeah, that was the first day, and I think it didn't get any better after that.
Is this movie
so obviously,
is this movie Red Planet?
what was that?
Red Planet?
That may be Red. This may be Red Planet.
It
yes,
could be. It's one of two
that may be
movies
the one.
Because I
that were made at the same
worked
time.
on that too. I didn't.
Oh yes.
You had the first of it. I'm
Well,
sure.
Wow.
Oh gosh.
I'd love to hear I'd love to hear some of your stories, but yeah, I basically had to start working to try and build up all these sequences for the director who really didn't know what he wanted while he was already filming. So it was a very, 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 very large mess very quickly. And at some point or another, the producer's face just went, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So I had one wonderful day where the producer came and tapped me on the shoulder at about 10 o'clock in the morning and said, look, you doing anything? Well, I'm storyboarding. Went, good, you're not storyboarding that anymore. We'd re-storyboard the entire end of the film. And I have a meeting at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon in Sydney, which is a couple of hours away from where we're by plane. I need the storyboards finished, inked, beautifully done by 2 o'clock so I can fly into Sydney and have my meetings. So this is obviously all pre-internet. So can you just get on with that now? So no time to check with the director who was out on location shooting, no time to do anything. So I had to storyboard the entire ending, had to make that from scratch. And
there was no script?
He basically said, just do something that works.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow.
There was a
Love
basic
those
concept.
directions, yeah.
Yeah, there's a basic concept of there's a robot that's going to be attacking Val. Val has to destroy this robot. Blah 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 blah. And so I spent the next 30 hours storyboarding. I think I got about 110 frames done, fully penciled and inked.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Got them done. Producer grabs them, kept them together, made them nice, ran to the airport, flew off, had his meeting. Anyway, that obviously seemed to do something to allay money people because that's the ending they shot. But I had this magnificent day where by this time we got back to Sydney to shoot the ending, and it was out in this quarry out in Blacktown. And I got called to the set at 11:30 at night because they were doing night shoots. And drove out there, went to the set, got shown to the director, and the director went, good, you're here. I hadn't spoken to him for about 3 weeks by that stage because it had been going very poorly. And he, with me by the shoulder, walked me out into the middle of the location where everybody was setting up and stuff like that. And he said, okay, everybody, this is the guy who drew the storyboards for this sequence. This is the guy who made this shit up. And it's his fault we're all here. So if you want to blame anyone, blame him.
Oh
Tapped me
my
on the shoulder and walked off.
Oh my God.
Oh.
And walked off. And
Yeah.
that was the last time I actually talked to him.
Yeah.
I do have to say, right after that, one of the gaffers looked at me and said, don't worry, mate, he's a wanker. So yeah, I didn't feel too bad. But you have those moments where things go so pear-shaped so quickly, and then you're used as the punching bag and it's his fault. And those are fun films.
You were ambushed at that point. You had, there's nothing else you could have done to avoid that from happening, pretty much.
No, I mean, you are an employee at this point, as well as now. Actually, you were the director, but getting past that, when there's so many people above you, like production managers and production designers, all these guys, and they literally have use of you. I mean, you are like a tool to the production. It starts getting wonky really quickly, like, and even to the point where who gets to see the storyboards? Because when I was on when I was on Scorpion King, there were like camps of different. The director had his guy, which is me. They had the production designer and the producer had their guy. They had the visual. They had the wireframe Asian stunt people had a guy doing all kinds of stuff. Right. I only knew two people, myself and one other, was actually on the set, and we had a production supervisor that I guess kind of knew what everybody was doing, but it was like a different teams trying to take the ball, and run with it. Who am I working for? Who's giving me a paycheck? I don't,
Yeah, that's another issue is whenever you're being told by multiple people also what to do, and like, okay, who am I supposed to listen to? Who's the highest up on the chain that I'm supposed to be paying attention to, and then without pissing off the other people who also are giving you direction of what to do. It's like now you're caught in the middle.
I was going to say, I only ran into that thing with multiple people above me just on one project, all the thousands I've done, but it was a commercial. And I'd worked out all the boards on a 30-second spot. And the producer, when he saw there were 43 panels for the 30-second spot, got livid, called me or got on a Zoom with me and started reaming me out. I've been doing this for so many years. I've done so many projects, and I've never seen more than 25 panels for a 30-second spot. That's not possible. And I said, well, I've done a lot more than that, and I could tell you it happens a lot. But hey, if you want to change it, and see, I'm happy to do the revision. So he and I sat down, and the producer went through and made his changes, and it came out to 2 panels more than the director's. And I counted, and I looked at it and I said, okay, well, we have 47 now. And he just was, again, and literally almost like the internet froze, because he had just approved everything and proved himself wrong. It was actually a glorious moment.
That's awesome.
Yes,
he was just so incensed that there were so many panels for it's like, a lot of cuts are only 8 frames long in a commercial. So yeah,
it's still a ridiculous amount of frames though for 30 seconds. I always warn directors whenever they go over a certain point. I'm like, okay, this is going to be like less than a second per shot. If that's unless it's a continuation of one shot that you're storyboarding, but usually it's not.
Yeah.
But this usually happens where I'm getting multiple people giving me feedback at different times when I'm working for an ad agency. Because there's usually, like, there is a creative director is usually the person who's the point person, but then there are other people working underneath them. And a lot of times, like, people don't want to take the blame, right? Like, they'd rather spread out the blame. So they'd rather have more people giving advice instead of one person. And so I got to a point where I'm like, look, I can't keep receiving all these emails, and I don't know, whose feedback I'm supposed to adhere to. And so, you need to have one person kind of correlate all the feedback into one email, and it sounds like it's coming from one person, and then we can move forward. Otherwise, it's like, it's impossible to try and please everyone, because you're always going to end up pissing off one of the other people, right?
The only thing to do is ask the director, because we work for the director. We don't work for the production designer. We don't work for the producer. They pay us. We work for the director. So it's like, hey, I've got these notes. What do you think?
Sure. For a film or for a production, that's true. But if it's an agency who's doing it, that's different. Like, you don't really work just for the creative director unless they tell you, only listen to me. So a lot of you guys don't work on advertising, which is, you're fortunate. You work on film, so you have the one director to listen to. But in the advertising world, it can be a little confounding sometimes. Charles, has that happened to you before? You've done a lot of advertising work.
Yeah, I've definitely had that. I'll try to find that line. I'll usually have a confirmation on the email. So so that I like creating paper trails. It's better for clarity, to isolate who's in charge, who can say yes. And then once that's confirmed on that paper trail, then that's who I'll always go to. So if starts to become like an issue, then just remind that chain of command. And it usually will happen. It usually will solve that.
We were talking about toxic environments too. And years and years ago, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Weinstein movie called My Week with Marilyn. And after they had shot the movie, Harvey Weinstein decided he wanted to change the opening sequence. And he was going to revise and reshoot the beginning. And so I got the call on this, but he was based up in New York, and I wasn't. So I hired one of the artists that freelances for me who lives in New York to go to the Weinstein offices and work with them. So he goes up, he gets there, 10 minutes early. He's sitting there waiting, and they bring him into a room. Harvey walks into the room, plops down, leans back, and looks at him and goes, "You got 10 minutes to impress me." Now, his work had already been approved, pre-approved. I'd gone through everything. They'd seen his work. They knew his credits. But that was the intimidation to begin working and try to be creative. You got 10 minutes to impress me. Nice. He called me right afterwards and you won't believe what this asshole just did to me. And it ended up working out because 10 minutes in, Harvey went, "All right, you'll do." And they kept going. But it's like, what a dick move.
That's like something out of the 30s or 40s, that producers when they were bigger than life characters. But that's ridiculous.
The funny thing is that what you're talking about, Mark's exactly what in a situation like that, it's all about trust building. And I think the thing that I never got an opportunity to do with the director on Red Planet was to actually have that trust building exercise because it was under pressure from the very beginning. It was a film I recently just finished where I came on and the director had clearly decided that the storyboards was going to do a little bit of what she was after. And they couldn't do anything more than that. And so she wanted them done extremely fast, like something like about 70% of the film done in 6 weeks. And I was just like, that's never going to happen. So instead of actually
you were the only board
busting
artist?
my ball at that time, yes. And at that time, I wasn't going to bust my balls trying to do that. So what I did was, she gave me the first sequence, and it was a doozy of a sequence. It had all sorts of logical problems and, how the hell will you do this, make this action work? And so instead of actually killing myself trying to get it done super quick, I took a little bit of extra time and sorted out the logical problems that didn't ask for any questions. I just figured out how to do it. Gave her a lateral solution to the thing just by dint of just taking a little bit of extra time. And the look of absolute relief on her face when she saw that and she suddenly realized that I'd solved that problem for her by just having that extra little bit of time. And she suddenly went, "Oh, okay, relax. The storyboards can do all of this." And then once I actually finished cleaning them all up, she went, "Oh my God, that's everything storyboards can do." And so, and it ended up being a 6-month job instead, because she just went, "All right, well, in that case, this is what storyboards do." So not that tiny little bit here, but it's actually everything.
That's a really good point.
It's super important to try and get that time with the director to try and show what storyboards are capable of doing.
I was going to say, it just reminded me of a story. I forget what, I think it was on Bad Monkey, but I'm not certain what show it was. And because I was doing the whole series, not every director chooses me, I'm given to them. And this director came in, and her when we start on the Zoom, her very first words to me were, "I don't like storyboarding. I don't see the value, but they're making me sit with you and do this."
Wow, that's a good way to get things
okay,
kicked off.
challenge accepted. but the good news is she actually sent me an email and I saved it. And the email said something like, "It was an absolute pleasure. Okay, you got me. I now love storyboarding and I love the process. So thank you." So I turned one.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's great.
Excellent.
But man,
Yeah.
you never know. When you start with something like that, it's like, oh crap, really?
Yeah.
I heard so
Yeah.
many people say that same story. I may have even heard that yours, but it's not the only one. There are a bunch out there where people are out there. That's not my process, man, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the producer wants them to have the storyboards for everyone else. It's not just for the director, right? That's the thing,
Right.
is that it's for the entire team to go off of. So that's what I think the directors sometimes are missing. They're so self-absorbed that they're thinking, I've got it all in my head. I'm good. I'm cool. No, it's like your team doesn't know what is in your head. So we need to see that. And it has to be approved.
Well, and then there's another thing too. I had a producer call me and say, look, the director's not prepping anything. I need you to come in to force them to start doing breakdowns so we know what the hell we're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
Yeah. I work with, I think his name, what is it? Tom Shadyac. Is that his first name? He's the director of Bruce Almighty, but I worked with him on Evan Almighty. He was actually a nice guy, but the thing is that he was one of these guys that wants to have his actors improv in a space, and we were building an arc. And they weren't going to build all of a arc. They wanted to build the stuff that the people could be in and then know what part was the CGI stuff. And so we work it backwards.
Like a literal arc, like a boat, not a story arc.
So it was like working with an established director who's doing this for the first time on this. And it wasn't bad. It's just, when you're working with like a cinematographer or somebody like that, it could be so easy. It could be, we're right in tune with each other and everything else, Well,
I ran into that, that aspect of the DP saving the day. It was actually on The Walking Dead, and on a lot of these big shows, they hire 50% women, 50% men. But at the time, this is probably 5-6 years ago, there weren't that many seasoned women TV directors. So some of the women coming in didn't have a lot of experience. Well, this one gal comes in, and it was her first big directing job. She had done a couple commercials and I think a music video, and that was it. But her agent got her on, and no one else was available. So she came in to storyboard it, and I was booked for a Monday morning session with her and the DP to start storyboarding, and I was on location. And when we sat down, she just looked at us. She goes, "So what do you guys think?" I said, "Well, what sequences do you want to do?" She goes, "Oh, I haven't thought of that." I went, "Well, let's do the effect or whatever." And the DP and we kept asking her questions, and she said, "Well, I didn't do it in any prep." But of course, she's never worked. This is her first day of prep on.
Oh no!
At that point, the biggest show on TV. And we said, "Well, I thought you had all day yesterday to prep." She goes, "Oh, I was at the hair salon for 10 hours getting my hair braided. So I didn't do anything on this. That was more important to me."
Okay.
And the DP and I just looked at each other. We nodded to each other and ignored her. And the DP and I just went back and forth and broke everything down. And we would look to her and she'd go, "Yeah, that sounds good."
Oh, wow.
I could not believe someone stepping into the biggest show on TV.
Holy cow.
Zero prep. And was proud of getting her hair braided.
Yeah.
Wow.
She wouldn't take it seriously. Gosh.
That is a big thing, though. It's also about ownership of what you're doing as well, isn't it? At some point or another, on some of these films, you just have to go. Someone's got to take the reins and put a stake in the ground for everyone else to actually just hang off and just go, "All right, we'll start from there."
Yeah.
I think we've all had those moments where we worked on a film where it's been clear someone has to start somewhere.
In trying to establish the expectations and parameters that are on both sides of that equation, whether you're an artist or the director, it's like, do you understand your role? This is what I need from you, and this is what you need from me. Like I guess it's all assumed, because this thing got up on its legs and it's now taking off. So is everyone strapped in?
Yeah, sometimes they have this isn't very often, but sometimes they have a storyboard supervisor. And especially there's a lot of scenes that have to be storyboarded and everything else. I did mention somebody, David Negron Jr., who is a great guy, and he was the one for Scorpion King, and I didn't envy him his position, although he did get a credit and I didn't, but and I was working with the director, so how much cash do you get out of that? But Rick Newsom, basically, was like the hero of that Fantastic Four movie that Josh Trank did, because that guy was a little no-show. And so he was keeping, he was the only one like stepping into Colonel Kurtz's, cabin or whatever to talk with him, because the guy did not make an appearance. I never met the guy or talked to him even over the phone the whole time I was there.
Wow.
And so we were getting our direction, and we were there after a bunch of other people. I have never been on a show where a storyboard artist had to take over from the previous people because they had to leave, and do Photoshop changes on previs images, In that case, you need somebody who can handle that. And of course, there's a few guys we know, Dave Lowery and on all these guys that are doing fantastic jobs on holding onto a crew and interacting with everything. But in the case like that, that's fine. I'm more than happy to go through at least one route, but I was passed around like a doobie at Woodstock. Super Mario movies. I've mixed up with the producer, with the editor, and I only worked one time with the directors. What is his name? Oh yeah, Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, which a lot of people you probably know. And that was a night shoot, and they never even told me. I was working like a 9 to 5 day, and then they says, "Well, I put in a day." He says, "Well, you're supposed to be at 7 o'clock. You're supposed to be over at the docks or wherever they're going to shoot." Go, huh?
Oh wow!
Why?
And then with Chris Woods, he was a visual effects guy, and he was having me board stuff that he was going to shoot the next day for plates. So that was
wow.
A
little pressure.
And this is like, and they had actually set up the whole production offices and everything. The production offices and the sets and everything in a rented cement factory in July in North Carolina.
Oh boy!
And this was
holy
OSHA
moisture.
Actually, we were. The whole art department was in this enclosed area in literally a cement bunker, and the editing department, the producer, whatever, they had their little offices, but their air conditioning was like built into the door or something and pushing all the heated air from the mechanism out into the hallway and raising the temperature inside. And David Snyder, who's the production designer of like Blade Runner, I feel bad that they treated him like that, but he had to say, we're abandoning this. We can't, someone's going to die this way. And so I ended up being with the little ladies who were fabricators in the wardrobe department for a while. I was near the refrigerator, so I was talking to everybody when they went for snacks.
Strategy.
So the weird one with John Leguizamo, I got passed over. A friend of mine, oh my gosh, Simon Merton was already on that show. He said, "You got to do this for me." John Leguizamo wants me to draw an interview for Interview Magazine for him, as a comic book. And he basically shoved them in my way, so I was doing extra work on top
Holy
of everything
cow.
else I was supposed to do. So But, being shoved around and say, okay, I got your comic book here. Here's your thing over here. And it's like, oh, yeah, the editing department wanted a T-shirt design, so.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you even bill for something like that? Is it per piece or hours or
paycheck?
Time. Okay.
I think John actually had me bill Interview Magazine. You know what I did for that whole thing? I think it was like $99 for something in a national magazine, one page of a national magazine.
God.
Proving once again, comics do not pay a living wage.
Apparently,
exactly.
Apparently, magazines started by Andy Warhol don't pay either.
Wow, jeez, that's true.
Wow, that's terrible.
Yeah,
I hate it when they try to shove us, because we're second thought for most areas of production, even though we're so important to the production, where they try to shove you off into some dank corner. I showed up, this is earlier in my career, but at one point I walk in and they put me in this little card table next to the copy machine. Of course, copy machines are being used 24/7. And, and I'm in between these storage shelves. I walked back there, they pointed at it, and I just turned and walked out, and I said, nope, not working there. And they went, what? Don't you need a table? I said, I'm not working in those conditions. Let me have the conference room. So, but we've got meetings. I said, they can work around me, but I'm not working here. And then it just got to the point where now I just, whenever I go in, it's like, just get me a conference room for when I'm coming in. And it's no longer an issue. But, oh my God, some of the places they've tried to put me at times.
We had
insulting.
We had a total mutiny going on the remake of Mighty Joe Young. Disney had these offices in Burbank. And at first, we were okay. We had two different, we had the office, we had a window, so we had natural light, and there was enough room and everything else. Apparently, in the contract of some, baby executive that was like a middle management asshole that Disney was, famous for back then, had it in his contract that he's supposed to have an office with a view or with a window. The only one they had available was ours, right? They kicked us off into this interior room. It was basically four walls and a door, and we were set in like a Tetris game. They just, however they could fit the desk in. And my friend Giacomo says, "I'm quitting. I can't. This is ridiculous. How dare they put us in here like chickens in a chicken thing?" And luckily for us, they moved everything out to the Hughes plant over there. That was a case of having so much room that you could look down the hallway, and it was like a perspective vanishing point to the end of the
Oh, wow. Yeah.
it was really weird. I think it's haunted, to tell you the truth. But but that, and you know what? That guy, that executive, never moved into that room. He pushed us out just because it was in his contract that he had the room. He never worked there.
That's fascinating.
God, not surprising.
Yeah. I just have to do the Paul Yorkshireman thing and throw one more story to top them and just go. I'm literally on Red Planet was literally given a desk with 3 legs.
Oh my God. No!
It's with 3 legs.
That's the one you're working on, and it's just like awesome. phone books. Back when you had phone books.
Right. Do most of you guys work remotely now when you work on a film?
Yeah.
Yeah, now since COVID proved that we don't need to come in anymore.
Well, actually, before that, I think it has a lot to do with, because a lot of the movies I worked on, they never even invited me into the studio. The production, I guess, actually got cheaper rates finding renting a place somewhere outside of it. So I've barely ever went in to work in a studio. With Sony, I did quite a few times, but everybody else, no. I think they just decided that it's easier for us to work remote. They don't have to pay for a table for us. They don't have to pay for any kind of rental, a pencil sharpener, and all of that, plus snacks, plus honestly, toilet paper and energy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard there's three-legged tables are really expensive these days. I know.
Old places, three-legged tables.
Yeah. Mark Sexton, do you still have to travel in, or do you work remotely pretty much all the time?
I've literally, I mean, other than pretty much working for, other than the George Miller films I do, because George is all about you being there, so you can sit there and just go. But yeah, other than that, I've basically worked remotely since 2011. So
nice.
If I could get on a film set, it'd be awesome. But yeah, you don't do that much these days. It's a bit depressing.
I have a story around remote working, which is it kind of takes it a little extreme. So I've done a lot of stuff for commercials and video games, and this one Seattle-based video game company is owned by a Korean conglomerate, and they were putting together a trailer for a video game called Guild Wars, and they were having problems with the director, who was Japanese, and he was in Japan, and the people who were going to model all the characters were in China, and the office that had to approve it was in LA. So they were having problems, as you could imagine, with communicating ideas and how to shoot this. And so they brought me in, and I got the scripts, and then I was like, oh yeah, this seems pretty cut and dry, you know. And so I go through, and they needed like 160 boards in like 2 days or something. And so I'm just like cranking. I think I put in 2 16-hour days or something like that. Got it done, handed it off, and they're like, oh, this is great, this is fantastic. And so they built an animatic. It looked great, and it got approved by everybody. Everyone was happy. And then the Japanese director got a hold of it, and he flipped all my shots because of their culture. They read left, right to left,
right to left,
left to right. So it was just like, when I saw the final trailer, I'm like, this looks familiar, but it looks different, and it doesn't play the same because it's for an American audience initially. So they were happy, but I don't know if they knew what they were getting and if it really worked well for them. But at least everyone was able to communicate through pictures instead of, different dialects.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges with actually working remotely is I've found is actually making sure that the production remembers you're there as well. Because sometimes you can get forgotten, particularly as a storyboard artist, because you're always slightly outside every department, as we mentioned earlier. I had one film where I was working like absolute buggery on this sequence of a Marvel film, and I've been on it for this sequence for 3 months, trying to get it done. And I finished it, and it was lovely, and I sent it in, and then the director's assistant, a producer's assistant, sent me a note back and said, we kind of forgot that you were working on that. Can we send you the new script?
Oh no.
And it was just like, everything was changed. Everything was changed. It was like that huge chunk of board. Now, do it again.
No.
But yes, one of the big things is actually just continuing to communicate, because it's so easy for you to slip through the cracks when you're working remotely.
That's huge.
Like, always checking with people all the time, and always make sure they're going, just giving you a weekly report. This is where I'm at. And always do it with the directors and producers' assistants, not with the director and the producer.
So I got a question for you guys. Did you ever, you're doing sequences and stuff like that, sometimes you don't know if it's a long haul or if it's like a couple of weeks or whatever, and they say, I think we got something, for now. And okay, and then they never drop the other shoe. They never say, we're going to finish off our paperwork, and hopefully we'll work with you again. They just leave it at that and say, you haven't fired me. Am I still working with you? and I turned in a couple of invoices saying, you never fired me. If you don't fire me, I'm working for you.
Yeah. Otherwise, what are you supposed to do with that?
What was the result, Tim? What did they pay you?
Well, basically, the person in his mind probably thought he said he didn't, but he thought he let me know that I was done working with it. But no, you're supposed to. It's like you're supposed to on a union film. You're supposed to tell somebody on Wednesday that they're going to be let go, so that they have and before noon, so that you have 3 days. You're supposed to have 3 days of your being paid from the time you're let go. So that gives you time to go and find something else or whatever. It's that cushion.
Oh.
So I've literally been in shows where they've said, okay, we think we're letting you go on Friday. And I said, okay, great, whatever. And then on Friday morning, I said, no, we're going to keep you around another week.
Our local here is they just need to let you know by 6 o'clock the day before. If they don't let me know by 6, I'm billing for the next day. But there's no 3-day leeway or anything like that on any of the union gigs I do.
I don't know if that's local, but it's what's been built in, and
I have a question for Mark Sexton. Being in Australia, are you still part of a union in the States, or are you in a union in Australia?
No, actually, weirdly enough, years ago, actually on Mission Impossible 2, I tried to join the film workers union here in Australia, and was told by this lovely, very disinterested gentleman that storyboard artists are not a necessary part of the film industry, and so as such, they are not represented by the film workers union here.
Oh,
so stop wasting his time, please.
So there's another union thing here that is actually you're part of the mechanics local or something like that. It's
nice.
I think New York has like an art department type of thing, but in LA, it's we have we're in the art department, the Art Directors Guild now. We used to all have our own locals, and they kind of consolidate us up into a heaving mass of protoplasm that doesn't really is not one thing or the other. The thing is that Canada, the local is everything. Everybody. They're all under one bit. So having jurisdiction more than outside of your own, especially now that we're localized and there's people that are going from California to Atlanta to working in those studios over there or other places, especially where the cost of living is cheaper. I mean, I knew I worked in Baton Rouge, and there was a couple of local guys that were doing movies and stuff in that area. I guess they're one of the southern locals. They're part of that, But international, no. I got friends that came from London and worked for a while. Some of them, one guy just retired, Trevor. Another person, Tracy, actually went back to London, and she was no longer part of the union when she did that because she wasn't a resident anymore.
Oh, okay. Now, Charles, you're part of the animation and the Art Directors Guild or Storyboard?
Yes, both of them, yes.
And does that permit you to work on productions in other countries like Canada or abroad? In either of those, or are there stipulations?
There's governmental stipulations for the Commonwealth.
I've definitely worked with other countries, but it's there's never been a problem with that. Then again, they've been like private films, like in the indie films. Mostly, those type of things. So they haven't gone through the unions on those. Any of the union jobs I've been doing have been on like Netflix or any of those. It's just a common thread.
Yeah.
For the ones that I've been on.
I used to go to different places, including Australia, but I was working for the film that was the offices were in LA. So even though I was working over there, I was working for that. I mean, I have a friend, Aaron, who worked in China, but he was working for Third Floor, right? So, you could be working abroad or whatever. But if you're working for a production like, say, James Bond, which is it's set up there, the production and everything else was set up there, you would have to have special dispensation because of British laws. If you were a Canadian citizen, you could. But, so
Does the union help get you there, get you that, or do you have to go and figure that out, all that out on your own, or is it
No,
based
they don't
on?
help at all.
Okay.
I've actually never really run into any issues with that stuff because I work on overseas things all the time, and most of them are union. But like Tim said, it's a U.S. based company. Like the new Blade Runner that's coming out, shot in Prague in Spain. But I did it remotely. Same Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we did in Italy a few of the episodes, and I went to Italy to work on those, so that didn't suck. But it was still regular union, regular time carding.
So it depends on where the production offices originally are located. That's what determines whether it's a U.S.
where the company is set up.
Yeah. Okay.
But the tax laws with Canada, especially with animation, it's harder for a U.S. story artist to work on an animation because there's a 10-point system, and the story artists are generally 1 point. And anything less than 8 points, they don't get their 45% funding from the government. So they'll only hire Canadian citizens in order to get that. Yeah,
that's the whole point. That's all of that government money is to encourage Canadian employment. Yeah. So you can have an American company send people over, or send production over there. Production designers go over there all the time to see the sets being built and everything else, but the workers are Canadian.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
When we're dealing with the with difficult situations or people, I know that when they first start, I know that when I first started, and I was fresh in LA and I didn't know anybody, and then it's like so then you don't have a level of insecurity, a lot of insecurity. So then you start accepting treatment and things, and because you don't know what to do. So for somebody just starting out with it, on the far psychology of it is to kind of understand your boundaries, right? And then why you're doing something, because and then usually if you can communicate those boundaries, it's usually fine, right? Ask yourself what happens if you just say no, right? Yep. It's like what's the worst going to happen, right? They'll fire you, right? And so and when you first come on something, or when you first get here, that insecurity of I don't want to get fired, right? It was I just got here, right? But just I guess if you know, and for somebody who's just starting, they're going to have to take time to know themselves, and that's going to take years and years and years. But once you start having that, you can understand what your boundaries are, what you can do, the treatment that you will be able to take, and then just calmly just be able to say that to people. And then it will be you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's also the training, any insecurity that you have is if just understand what you need to do a job, and then be able to communicate that, right? And then also keeping things visual, the more eyes you can have something on, the email chains, you can have a trail so you can always follow it, and that's great.
They're all great points.
This industry is known for taking advantage of people. It's sad to say, especially people who are just starting out in the industry. Maybe we can discuss our first storyboarding jobs, paid or unpaid, or how we broke in, because I know when I was young, I was almost willing to do anything to get that first job. But yeah, Charles has some solid advice that you don't want to be taken advantage of. And you shouldn't let that happen, because these are grown adults who are hiring us, and they should be treating you with the same respect that they would, treat a veteran storyboard artist as well. So good points.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, one more thing, as far as I think is also really important, also for somebody who's just starting out, is as far as the psychology of something, just understanding so that you don't overexert yourself. I know that I've stayed up for over 24 hours, over almost 36, you know what I'm saying? But I had a younger mindset when I was just go.
Yeah.
And then and so it's almost like throwing everything at it, right? And then not saving anything for the ride back, not sleeping, not eating well. And then that works for a little bit, but then it'll start breaking down your mind, you know what I'm saying, eventually, the longer you're on it. And then that can affect things. And then that also affects, if you're placed in an environment where you're on that becomes a part of adds to the difficulty of a project as well, because you can burn out. And then burning out while you still need to do the job, because then if you get fired off that job and you're burnt out, then that's also another psychological thing that starts happening that you'll have to heal from.
Absolutely.
But you'll be, but anybody just starting out is like, it will be okay. You're probably most likely, as you're learning, you probably are going to get fired. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone gets fired. But just to be able to understand, just be able to just do some assessment and then just manage your stress levels and just kind of knowing who you are. That's going to take time.
Well, just last thing, just to go by what he was saying, just because there are union standards for things like, say, half again for Saturdays or for a sixth day and double time for a seventh day, just because those are union things doesn't mean you can't ask for them.
Right.
True.
Right.
Basically, if they expect you to send things back to them digitally, scanning things and everything else, you get paid for your equipment.
Absolutely. Opportunity cost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fees, yep.
And that's,
Yep.
I would like to find out a way for me to bill them for the toilet paper I use when I'm working here.
And on that note.
On that note.
I was there.
That's fun. All right, we'll wrap it up on that note. All right. Thank you to our distinguished panel of guests. I really appreciate you joining us today to discuss this. I hope to see you in the future. And I want to thank our viewers for watching. And we'll be back again. Hopefully, we're going to try and make this a monthly series, so we'll see how it goes. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comments. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lance and Shane.
Bye.